Welcome to Pioneer Mindset, a place where we challenge our mindset and address the discomfort in both business and life by finding clarity resulting in bold conviction. I'm your host, Garrett Ruskamp, fifth generation farmer, husband, and father from rural Nebraska. Whether you're navigating frustration from past decisions or worry about the uncertainty you face today in your business, we're going to learn from our struggles and take on new challenges with a resilient mindset. Join me as I share my journey of struggles I faced in agriculture as a farmer and family man. I'm ready to dive into honest conversations to tackle the mindsets surrounding key issues that rural ag business owners face that will ultimately help you gain control, leading to a profitable and sustainable business. Let's adapt to Pioneer Mindset and get to it. Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today's topic for the episode is working on your business rather than in your business. So kind of at the end of the first episode, I had kind of touched on how we are taught and conditioned over the years to work. And basically, if you're not working, you're not making money. Or if you're not working hard, you're not going to be successful. We all grew up this way, raised by a generation that worked their tails off. And honestly, they made a good living doing that. That's how they got by. That's how we got to the legacies built up that we did. And that's how it was for me. I worked alongside my grandpa up until about 4 months before he passed away. And, he was, I wouldn't say necessarily a workaholic, but, definitely of the generation that knew how to work hard. They still knew how to have fun, but he definitely knew how to work hard. And his phrase was always, I'd rather wear out than rust out. So that's definitely kind of where, my dad learned his work ethic, and that's kind of where I learned my work ethic. And, definitely can remember lots of stories throughout the years that even just growing up in high school, maybe loading hogs at 5 a.m. before we went to school. And that was just kind of the normal. Growing up on the farm, working hard was kind of a normal thing, just kind of the way it came to us. And even if you didn't, work on a farm, you probably learned from lots of other people and watched them physically do the work, the operational work outside, getting their hands dirty and just getting after it. And usually, like I said, that means they're working in the business on the day-to-day operations and the daily grind. And that's ultimately, as us kind of watching those people do that, that's usually what intrigued people. It intrigued me. I mean, you didn't mind the hard work. You didn't mind getting after it and working hard. And the one thing I want to comment here is, working hard is definitely not a bad thing. That's not where I'm going with this. Is, oftentimes it's a lot easier for us to work outside rather than inside on the business and do the things that we need to kind of set the business up for growth in the future and different things of that nature. And like I said, it's a little bit of resistance actually when you try to work maybe on the business rather than in the business. And we, generally as humans take the path of least resistance. It's a lot easier for us to go outside and work our tails off in 90-degree weather than sometimes to stay inside and do bookwork or whatever that may be. The thing I want to mention here is, what does working on your business actually look like? That could be doing different things such as strategic planning, maybe trying to plan for the future. Maybe that's even trying to plan ahead for your cropping season for the next year or even 2 years out in some cases. Or maybe it's just strategic business plans, different opportunities that could come up. Or maybe it's developing systems and processes. That's a big one that we generally don't think about, because it's just not natural for us. That's something that you could maybe put the time into now and will actually pay you back dividends in the future. Or maybe it's simply setting goals. Typically, if we don't take the time to set the goals, we don't always have something to strive for. Typically, setting goals is something that we didn't necessarily learn how to do. So once again, it doesn't come naturally for us. Therefore, it's not necessarily easy for us to sit down and do. The other one could be, creating a vision that kind of goes along with the goals. Typically, we don't take the time to create a vision either. Without a vision, how do we really know where we're going in the future with either our business, our operation, or even our personal lives? We don't necessarily know why we're working as hard as we are if we don't have a vision. Overall, just making decisions that contribute to the overall growth and improvements of the business. Sometimes those are things that also don't come easy to us, and we don't take the time to sit down and go through those things. The other thing here is when it comes to working on the business, generally that requires us just to take a step back, analyze, strategize, and plan for the future. I'm going to be hitting on those multiple times throughout a lot of my episodes because that's ultimately what we're trying to do is analyze, strategize, and then plan for the future. You can't really do that when you're busy, out there feeding the cows, or maybe you're cutting the alfalfa or getting ready to bale or combining corn, whatever it is that you're doing. You're usually pretty preoccupied with the day-to-day operations. And we all know it takes so much time to do those things, but it doesn't usually give us a lot of time to work on our business and work on the things that are going to propel us to the future. On some of these things, just some examples, things that come to mind for me. It's always a good idea to work on your financial projections and different things like that so you can kind of really analyze where you're at within your financial position. And then you use that analysis, whatever it may be, whether it's using your QuickBooks or some sort of a software program that you can plug all these numbers into and really analyze where you're at. And then we go into the strategize, which is more or less the projections. The projections are also a little bit of the analyze, putting your projections together where you think you're going to be in the next year or the calendar year, or maybe it's a cropping year, whatever that may be, whatever that looks like. Once you do that and you put those projections together, you can then take the time to strategize. How do we make sure we're trying to stay profitable? How do we manage our costs? And then strategizing and then planning for the future kind of go hand in hand, because as you strategize, you're trying to see what's going to be better for you in the future in the long run. That also might mean doing some break-even analysis or like an enterprise analysis, whether it's crops or cattle, to really know just kind of where you're at on an overall break-even standpoint. So you kind of know what you're selling for and your different break-even targets and prices and different things like that. That's going to set you up for the future and for the long run. That's one of those just examples that comes to mind with working on your business rather than in. And generally, when it comes to doing those things, it's kind of hard to do those on a whim or accurately on the back of your hand or riding in the cab, typing things on your calculator on your phone. Those are all great, but those are not accurate and those are not sustainable long term to technically be working on your business. You're still working in your business. And I kind of go back to what I said earlier about you kind of need to take a step back to really get the overall big picture view of your business to kind of know where you're going. Another kind of example is sometimes this might mean doing the things that we don't want to do. And I go back to, a lot of the things that I'm talking about maybe aren't the easiest for us to do, so they don't come naturally. So there's always going to be some sort of resistance when we're trying to do these things. The other thing that the example that I'm going to use here is something that I was currently working on is some grants. There's lots of different grants out there or different programs for funding, whatever it might be. A lot of times that requires some paperwork to sit down, to think a little bit differently, and to try to put some words on a paper to really go after whatever it is that you're going after. And then for this instance, I was trying to work on a grant to get something to help with our farming operation. And, a lot of times a grant like that, it's definitely not naturally, even for me. I've never really done much for grants. But the thing about that is if I can go through that process, take the time to do that, there's two things that are going to happen. One, I'm going to learn how to do that. So if I ever need to know in the future, or two, I'm going to hopefully get the money from the grant or the funding. And so that's going to pay off and kind of set ourselves up in the future in a positive way, offset some cost or whatever it may be that we're trying to expand into. It's definitely worth your time. And that's sometimes what we don't always realize is, I guess, and take a step back, when we are working outside, we're feeding the cattle, we're harvesting the grain, maybe we're hauling the grain to the elevator. It's a direct action or direct result that we see from doing that action. And that's a fulfillment piece for us in most cases. And we kind of see the result quicker. And sometimes when it comes to doing working on your business, doing a grant, doing your projections, we don't see the direct results of those things right away. So it makes it a lot harder for us to sit down and do those. But ultimately, in the long run, those are what's going to pay us dividends. A grant like that, whatever it may be, just for example, say you spend 4 hours on it and you might get $10,000 for the grant. You do that math, the return on your investment for your time that you put into that, it's going to be well worth it. And that's the same thing when it comes to working on any sort of projections in your business, on your business. The other thing I want to mention here is all of this kind of comes down to balance, though, like anything else. in life, whatever it may be. There's definitely a balance. There's also an argument that you could get into, and a lot of people have, and I will argue that the argument comes from usually the older generation that is used to working and working and working and working in the business, is the chicken or the egg, which comes first. If you're not outside working, doing the day-to-day, keeping up on the operations, feeding the cattle, planting the crops, then there's really no use to go inside and do the projections for those crops or the cattle. But on the same hand, if you don't do work on your business, do those different projections, does the day-to-day, the hard work and all the hours, blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it really matter if you're going to end up losing it? Worst case scenario? Definitely some things to think about there, and there needs to be a balance. And that's why, kind of wrapping some of this up, there needs to be a balance, but oftentimes that balance gets off. Or maybe there's virtually no balance because you're strictly just working in the business on a day-to-day operations. And part of that is because in your mind, anyways, you don't have time. And that's the big excuse that we're going to use. Well, I don't have time to go inside and work on the computer and do this, or that. Well, I think that's the next thing is think about it this way. Would it be easier to find somebody to help you in the day-to-day operations to work in your business? Or would it be easier to find someone to work on your business doing the managerial type of things? And is that the person that you're going to hire, or would you rather hire the person that's going to be out there doing the chores, feeding the cattle? Just kind of consider that. It's going to be a lot easier to hire that person on the day-to-day operations. The other thing I want you to consider here, and it's a kind of important question, is what does the future of your business look like without someone working on your business? Just think about that one. And I'll ask it again. What does the future of your business look like without someone working on your business? Working on those things that I discussed: strategic planning, developing systems and processes, setting goals, creating a vision, and making overall decisions that are going to improve your business. That's all I got for today, and I hope you enjoyed this. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for tagging along with me today as we sharpened our mindsets. If you've gained insight from today's episode, be sure to take a screenshot to share or send this episode to somebody who might also find value in it. For more, follow me on Instagram @GarrettRuskamp or on Facebook, and join me next time for more conviction through clarity.